StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to adopt and adjust. And we'll get into what that means in a moment. But before we get started, let me tell everybody I send out a text message free of charge every single morning called the Daily Motivation. This message is guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day. And I already know that you want to receive this, so let me tell you how to get it. Just text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. And every single morning when that message comes out, starting tomorrow, you'll be getting that message free of charge straight to your phone. And every single day for as long as I keep the Daily Motivation text going. All you got to do is text me at my number, again, which is down below in the description to this video, or this audio. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is where anybody ever asking, Dre, do you offer any kind of coaching? Do you have anything like courses? Do you have higher level trainings? Any way that I can kind of dive deeper on any of the things that you talk about around mindset or strategy or systems or execution for business, for my personal life? Do you have anything like that? Is there anywhere I can go and just get deeper in the game? The answer is yes. And the place to that answer is workonyourgameuniversity.com. The link to that is down below in the description to this video. So there you have option of getting coached directly by me. You can get access to all of my high level trainings and courses to take at your own pace. And at either one of those, you'll be getting the Bulletproof Bulletin and Black Book, 2 physical mailings that I send out every single month for free to everybody who's in the university. Everybody's a member of the university. That is all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. All that said, let's get into this. How to adopt and adjust. Now, we all understand that change is the only constant in life, and we understand that things are always changing. And we also understand that change is inevitable, that we can't stop change from taking place, that even we are changing, even when we're not trying to change. We change, at least on a basic level, by getting older. Some of you change on purpose because you are actively looking to make yourselves better. I would assume most of you who are listening to the show, you're that type of person. And the question we're going to address today is, how do we make sure we are continually adapting and adjusting to the ever-changing circumstances of life as we are ever-changing people ourselves? That's the question we're going to address. Point number one, topic once again, is how to adopt and adjust. Number one is understand that when you are in Rome, you do as the Romans do. When in Rome, do as the Romans. And understand that this is not selling out. This is actually buying in. I talked about this in episode 2235, episode 2235. This is not selling out, is buying in. Now, when you buy in, this does not mean you are giving up your identity. It means you're learning how to play the game, which I talked about in episode number 1314 and also in episode 1210. Playing the game is a big distinction that many of you need to make when I talk about playing the game, especially those of you who come from backgrounds where you were socialized to believe that if you do anything other than what all the people around you, at least where you come from, the people who are from where you're from, you do something other than what they're doing, that means you're somehow going against your own identity, or you're violating your culture or your race or your family or whatever it happens to be. This is what we do. People like us do this. So if you do anything other than that, then that means you're doing something wrong. All right. That is not the case. All right. Again, this is not selling out. It's buying in. So any of you comes from a place where nobody ever puts on a suit and dresses formally on a regular basis, and then you get to a place where that is what will be required and or expected of you. And if you were to do it, you would feel like you're some kind of sellout, or you're going against the identity that you've always had. All right, are you selling out or are you buying in? All right, what's the goal? Let's always bring it back to that. What is the goal? Is the goal for you to, quote unquote, keep it real with the environment that you came from, that you've been claiming you want to get out of? Or is the goal for you to achieve success? And achieving success means you need to buy into what's going on in this environment that you are in which you want to excel. And buying in means doing what these people are doing. All right, so which one are you doing? Are you selling out or are you buying in? The smartest thing to do In any new environment you step in is to understand the lay of the land. It's not necessarily to follow what everybody else is doing. First thing you need to do is understand the lay of the land. What's going on here? Who's doing it? And why are they doing it? That's the lay of the land. You need to figure that out. Any place you walk into, you got to know what's going on. Because if you miscalculate in this space, you could be very good at your thing, or at least what you think your thing is, and still end up in a unwanted situation simply because you misread the terrain. You don't ever want to misread the terrain. Sun Tzu said in The Art of War, and if you know the terrain and you know your enemy and you know yourself, in 99 battles out of 100, you will never be in peril. But if you don't know the terrain, or you don't know your enemy, or you don't know yourself, you may end up in trouble. Paraphrasing. So you got to know what's going on. You got to understand what's happening. And the lay of the land does not necessarily mean that you copy everybody else. Not necessarily. But it does mean you need to understand when you should follow group norms versus when you should ignore group norms and maybe do something different. So there's a line to be drawn between the two. And this is all about feel. This is about touch. This is about understanding and being able to read. All right, should I follow what everybody else is doing here, or should I go against the grain of what everybody else is doing here? It's not always either one or the other. All right, it can be a little bit of both at different times. And this is where your intuition and your instincts come into play. We're going to talk about this more as we move on. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to adapt and adjust to situations in life. Point number 2, pay attention to what's going on around you so you can develop a fingertip feel for when things have changed and know when to pivot and make change yourself. This is something that fingertip feel is something that Robert Greene talks about in one of my favorite books called The 33 Strategies of War, and that a general in war needs to be able to feel and understand when the tide of the battle is turning and how to keep his troops in the right place so that they're in the most advantageous position to win. How to motivate and inspire his troops so that they're ready to fight, and they fight with vigor and courage, and they fight like their lives depend on it, because it actually does. The general has to understand all of these things, and there's no black and white color by numbers manual for how to do this. That's the key point that many of you, this is where many people come up short, is that they want some black and white. If this happens, do that. If that happens, do that. That's not the way it works. That's not the way life works. So you got to know when to make change, when to pivot. So you don't want to be changing just for the sake of change, just to say that you did it. And you also don't want to be the last person to move when the ground shifts underneath your feet. So you don't want to move too soon or for no reason, and you also don't want to move too late and miss the boat. This is why, again, this is not a black and white color by numbers thing. This is a feel thing that you must develop over time, and you develop this with experience. You also can develop it by learning from other people's experience. Since we don't have the time to experience everything in life, you can learn it by studying others who have already gone through a lot of things that you're going to go through, so you can learn what they know, so you don't have to go through it and experience it yourself and go through all the trial and error. So if there was a black and white manual that said, if this happens, do that. Somebody says this, do this. If you're thinking this, do this. If you wake up on this side of the bed, do this. You wake up on that side of the bed, do that. If it was that simple, then listen, I would write that manual and I would sell it to you instead of giving it to you for free here on the show. But that process does not exist, and it doesn't work that way anyway. Even if it did, it doesn't work that way. You have to learn how to read the room and make judgment calls. So what do I mean when I say read the room? This doesn't necessarily mean that you're walking into a room. It means knowing the environment that you're in and understanding how things work in that space. So any of you ever saw the movie Casino with, who was that? Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci and several other people. In that movie, Casino, one of the things that there was a scene in the movie where Sam Rothstein, who I believe that was De Niro. If I'm getting my actors mixed up, forgive me, but I believe it was De Niro. There was a scene in that movie where he was trying to get his license. I believe it was a liquor license he was trying to get from the gaming board in Las Vegas. And he ended up not getting the license simply because De Niro, he was an out-of-towner. He was not from Las Vegas. And the people who ran the gaming board that decided whether he got the license or not, they're supposed to give him a quote-unquote fair trial in getting the license. But they didn't give him a fair trial. And the reason they didn't give Sam Rothstein a fair trial is because Sam had offended some locals there, and he thought he could get away with it because he was no bigger and he had more money and a more prestigious title than some of those locals that he had offended. And the person he had offended actually was what happened is there was someone who had worked for him. There was an employee, just a basic bottom line level, first level employee who had gotten fired by Sam Rothstein. Sam fired him, and that employees, one of his family members, maybe his father, his uncle, something like that, came to Mr. Rothstein's office and asked, hey, could you give him the job back? And the guy was hinting, he didn't say it in so many words, but he was hinting that he was, quote unquote, he was somebody in town. He was somebody, and Sam Rothstein was kind of looking down on the guy. Like, and this guy looks like some everyday, clodhopper, nobody guy. And he paid the guy no mind and said, no, your guy, whoever it is you're vouching for, your nephew or your son, or whoever it is, no, he can't get his job back. And Sam had a great, logical, black and white reason why he wouldn't give the kid, the job back. And the man who was sitting in his office said to Sam Rothstein, he said, you guys come here from out of town and you think you're, not in so many words, I'm paraphrasing what he said. He said, you don't understand how things really work around here. And Sam Rothstein just kind of blew the guy off like, F this guy. And then when it came time for Sam to get his hearing in front of the gaming board to get his license, that guy who had blown off was sitting there in the crowd, and he sat there and watched as Sam got completely shut down by the gaming board and didn't even get a chance for really a fair conversation. He got completely shut down because he didn't understand the politics of the town that he was in. And that was the beginning of the end for Sam. It started his downfall. If you ever seen the movie Casino? The whole point is Sam misread the room. All right, and this is what I'm trying to help you all to not do. Do not misread the room. He misread the room of the way things actually worked in Las Vegas, even though this was it was acting. It was a movie. This is not based on a true story, at least as far as I know. This is the mistake that many people make every single day. They misread the room of how things actually work, and they end up screwing themselves over because you offend the wrong person. That's something Robert Greene talks about in the 48 Laws of Power. Do not offend the wrong person. And when you do that, it's hard to turn back. It's hard to turn that around. So you got to learn how to read the room, okay, and make judgment calls. This is all about judgment, feel, and instinct. So while Sam was objectively right in not giving this kid his job back because he had been late for work multiple times and he messed up on the job this many times, Sam had a list of reasons why he wouldn't give the kid his job back. He was correct. But judgment-wise, he was wrong because the person who he fired was connected to somebody who could have helped him get a whole lot more of what he wanted in exchange for having this loser employee working on his staff. Even though the guy would have been a screw up had he given him his job back, it would have been worth it because of what he would have got in exchange for it. So sometimes in life, again, remember what we talked about in episode 2174, there are no perfect outcomes in life, only trade-offs. So what trade-offs are you willing to make? And you have to make judgment calls about these trade-offs. Everything is not going to work in your favor no matter how hard you want it to, no matter how good you are. It will never work that way. Politics matter. They will always matter. So I'll give you another example. When I was a sophomore in college, the coach who had recruited me to my college got fired. I went to school at Penn State. I was at Penn State Altoona at this time. The coach who had recruited me there after my sophomore season ended, he gathered the team together and he let us know in no uncertain terms that the team was going to have a new coach the next year. He could see the writing on the wall that he was going to get replaced by a different coach. He was right. He did get replaced by a different coach. New coach came in. This guy named Armin Gilliam. He had been a former NBA player. He's passed away now, but he had been a former NBA player, and this was his first head coaching job. And I remember when I met Coach Gilliam, this is the summer before my junior year, and I met him, and I had been on the team the previous year, so I thought maybe he might be a little bit familiar or at least a little bit warm to me because I'd been on the team the previous year, but he wasn't really warm to me. He was kind of cold. So I remember when I met him and we had that first conversation. It was a very brief conversation. My judgment told me that this guy was kind of cold towards me, even though I had already been on the basketball team, which told me, this made an alarm went off in my head. Okay, I'm pretty much coming here like a brand new player who nobody knows. The coach he wasn't very welcoming towards me when he first met me. So I knew that coming into my junior year, because I met him in the summertime. So I knew that fall when basketball practices or tryouts, I guess, that I now needed to show up for happened. I knew I needed to show up as if I was a brand new guy who was playing for my spot on the team, not as a returning player who was just, solidifying my position. I had no position. I knew that from the way that he received me when I first met him. Now, unfortunately, some of my teammates from that sophomore year who also were coming into a similar situation, they did not have the same judgment that I did. So I remember seeing them talking to Coach Gilliam my junior year before basketball practice started. I saw them talking to him and they were talking to him as if they already had a spot on the team, and I knew different. I knew that he was looking at all of us returning players as if we were expendable, disposable, and that he could easily replace all of us, even though I didn't think that was true. I didn't think the players that he could replace us with were of equal quality on the basketball court as us, but I knew that that's what he thought. And what I thought didn't matter because I wasn't the decision maker. He was the decision maker. So I knew that he was thinking that way. But I didn't tell them. I kept it to myself because I knew how I needed to show up at trials. But I saw these guys and they were walking around and talking to him as if they were like collaborating with him as to what the basketball team would be. I knew that wasn't the case. So then we start having basketball practice / tryouts. And within 2 days, he announced that one of our returning players, or at least we thought was a returning player, was not going to be on the team the next year. It kind of shocked a whole bunch of people because this guy had been a starter. He had been a very good player. And the coach just announced to everybody he ain't going to be on the team this year. And a lot of people were very surprised by that. I wasn't surprised. Why? Because I read the room. All right. The room was him. The room was the coach. And I knew exactly how he was thinking. Again, I could just read his energy. They misread his energy and they paid for it with their careers because that was the last basketball most of those guys ever played. Moving on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to adapt and adjust as necessary. Number 3, as I've told you, the majority is always wrong and you should never follow what most people are doing. Never, ever follow what most people do. Now, here's the inverse of that point. There are some people in the minority who are plugged in, have very strong feel, maybe stronger than yours, strong intuition, maybe better than yours. They know things that you might not know, and they know them sooner than you would know them, and they know them better than you would know them. These are the minority. So how I told you, never, ever follow the majority because they're always wrong. Well, guess what? The minority, these are the people who are very often right. These are the people you need to be following. If you listen to my episode where I talked about Amazon's 7 principles of leadership, and you can find every episode of the history of the show by going to workonyourgamepodcast.com, but I will refer you to the episodes, episode 895 and 896. One of Amazon's 14 principles of leadership, at least at the time, they may have changed it since I did that episode, was that the leaders in their company are often right. R-I-G-H-T, often right. Meaning when they make decisions, their decisions usually end up the right decision. When they have an opinion, that opinion usually ends up being the opinion that was the correct and accurate one from the beginning. The leaders are people who usually know their stuff. In other words, they know their shit and they're right about their shit and they execute on their shit. Leaders at Amazon, that's what you need to be. That's one of their principles, all right? Not preferences, principles, that you know your shit and you're accurate. Understand that the minority, these are the people who are, again, plugged in, strong feel, smarter than you, know stuff better than you and deeper than you, and know it sooner than you. These are the people you need to be plugged into. These are the people you need to follow. These are the people who I tell you don't follow the majority. These are the people you should follow, the minority. These are people you should look at. You should possibly mimic what you see them doing. This is why you need to plug into high-level individuals, whether you know them in person or you follow them on the internet or you pay to get access to them. I just told you that I paid $3,500 to buy a ticket to a conference. I'm paying to get access to the people that the main person can bring in. All right. Why? Because they usually are going in the direction that all the rest of us need to be going. Even if you don't know why they're going there or what led them to doing it, sometimes you don't need to know. Just follow where they're going because they're doing what most people ain't doing. Those are the people you need to be following. And you need to have yours. You need to know who these people are for you. So the same way that you ignored the majority, pay close attention to the minority. Your job then is to identify who that minority is. Who is the minority for you? In your line of work, who are the minority? Who are the people that are making it happen at the level that is equal to or better than your level? Those are the people you need to be following. What are they doing that you're not doing? What are they not doing that you are doing? If you just ask yourself those questions, that would lead to you, that would give you a pretty good skeleton, at least a skeleton of what you need to do moving forward or what you need to not do moving forward, if you just paid attention. But some of you either A, are not paying attention, or B, what you see, because you do ask yourself these questions and you get answers, but the answers make you uncomfortable because you don't want to do what you see them doing, and you don't want to stop doing what you see that they're not doing. You just don't want to step out of your comfort zone, and that's the main thing that's holding you back. It's not your lack of information. Let's recap today's class, which is how to adapt and adjust to ever-changing circumstances. Number 1, Understand that when you are in Rome, you should do as the Romans do. Again, this is not selling out. This is buying in. You must understand the lay of the land in any room you step into, and do not make a mistake here because it could cost you dearly. Number two, pay attention to what's going on around you so you can develop a fingertip feel for when the ground has shifted so you can pivot and make change as necessary. Again, remember in the movie Casino, Sam Rothstein misread the room in Las Vegas and he paid for it and basically cost him his career out in Vegas. That was the beginning of his downfall. And the same thing I told you, when a new coach came in college, I knew this guy was looking at all the old players like, I'm going to get rid of all of them. And some of my former teammates were looking at him as if they thought he liked them and he didn't. And they ended up losing their careers as a result because they misread the room. Do not misread the room ever. And number three, as I told you, the majority is always wrong. You should never follow the majority. Well, then what's the inverse? Who's the minority? Who are the people that are playing the game at a super high level? Those are people you need to be following. Those are people you should look at what they're doing and ask yourself, all right, how can I borrow what they're doing and start doing that? Why are they doing it? How can I start doing it? I don't even know why they're doing it, but I might try doing it because they're in the minority and they're playing the game at a higher level than me. So whatever they're doing, I should probably be doing it. All right. So any of you who's looking to make more money in your business and you know of someone who's making twice as much money as you, whatever you see them doing, you should probably do it. All right. Even if you don't know why they're doing it, you should probably do it. Right? Or at least look at how could I take some of what they're doing and apply it to what I'm doing? Or you can send them an email or a DM and say, hey, I noticed that you did this. Why do you do that? Maybe they'll send you a link and say, well, I talk about it on my podcast, or here's my book, or here's my course, or here's my 5-day challenge that I'm going to be doing next week. You should sign up for it and I'll explain to you exactly why I'm doing it. You need to get plugged into these people. These are the people you need to be paying attention to on the internet instead of your bum ass cousin telling you what they ate for lunch. All right. All that said, text me and let me know. Best point you got from today's class. My number is 305-384-6894 and workonyourgameuniversity.com. That is where you can get access to all my high level trainings, all my courses. You can take at your own pace or you can get directly coached by me. I only coach people in one place, that is at Work on Your Game University. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all